Pop art is an art movement that began to emerge in Britain within the mid-1950s and late 1950s in America. The movement itself was seen as a fascination with popular culture reflecting the affluence in post-war society. Pop art had reached its peak within the 1960s. It was a definition of popular, transient, expendable, low-cost, mass-produced, young, witty, sexy, gimmicky, glamorous, and seen as big business. We can see that everyday product and advertisement were taken into consideration for the pop art influence. Items such as soup cans, comic strips, washing powder, Coca-Cola cans and bottles were used for this. Pop art as a movement was a direct descendant of Dadaism. This is seen because it mocks the established art industry by taking images from stores, the mass media, as well as streets and presents it as art itself. Artists that have been influenced by this pop art include Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, Richard Hamilton, Roy Lichtenstein, Andy Warhol and Klaus Oldenburg. During the 1980s, there was a revival of interest in pop art, a phenomenon known as neopop or shock pop art. It was not a new art movement as such, rather a resurgence of artworks based on popular culture, this time derived from the 1980s. While the original pop art movement was totally avant-garde, neo-pop art is more of a repetition. Thus, neo-pop artists continue to employ ready-mades and pre-existing items in their works, and also rely heavily on celebrity icons like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, and so on. One of my favourite artists of all time is Roy Lichtenstein. Lichtenstein was one of the most well-known artists to become involved with the pop art movement. Born in 1923 on October the 27th, initially Lichtenstein was not a comic book enthusiast. He started as a cubist and abstract expressionism artist. However, in the upcoming years, comics would become a huge inspiration for his best-known works. By the late 1950s, his work included hidden cartoon characters. Lichtenstein's son drove him towards pop art. There is a painting called Look, Mickey from 1961, which is regarded as the bridge between his abstract expressionism and pop art works. His son, however, challenged him by pointing out a Mickey Mouse comic and stating, "I bet you can't paint as good as that, Dad." The painting was therefore the result of that. Originally criticised by other art critics as a copycat, Lichtenstein was then questioned by media as, is he the worst artist in the US? Although this did not seem to take any effect on Lichtenstein's work or future within the pop art movement. Wham! Is his most famous painting, one of many of which depict aerial combat, connecting to his 3-year service in the army during World War II between 1943 and 1946. Wham! And Drowning Girl are regarded as his most famous works, as well as Oh Jeff, I Love You Too, but Drowning Girl, Wham! And Look Mickey are also seen as his most influential pieces. Woman with Flowered Hat has held a record as the highest Lichtenstein auction price since May the 15th, 2013, at an incredible $56.1 million. However, that was recently beaten in 2015 by Nurse, an oil and magna on canvas painting, sold on November the 9th for $95,365,000. Lichtenstein died of pneumonia in 1997, leaving behind a wife and 2 sons. However, his pop art continues to influence the 21st century. Himself and Andy Warhol were used within U2's 1997 and 1998 Pop Mart tour, and also within an exhibition in 2007 at the British National Portrait Gallery. His work, Crying Girl, was one of the artworks that had been brought to life in the Night in the Museum Battle of the Smithsonian.
Wow.
Pop art as an art movement may have seen its day, but it can still be seen as an influence within the modern society. We still continue to use everyday items and portray them in the same style as Andy Warhol portrayed his Campbell soup can and his Marilyn Monroe. It may have only lasted so long as a movement, but it still continues to live within the culture's everyday lifestyle. Optical illusions or visual illusions are caused by a mismatch of what the eyes see and what the brain interprets. The brain is often tricked into thinking something is moving when contrasting colours are placed in close proximity to each other and are repeated. Op art is a style of art that uses optical illusions to create an impression of movement, or hidden images and patterns. Artists who have worked closely with optical illusions include M.C. Escher, Bridget Riley, Salvador Dali, Patrick Bokanowski, Marcel Duchamp, Jasper Johns, and Charles Allen Gilbert. Bridget Louise Riley, born in 1931 on April the 24th. Riley became interested in op art whilst working within advertising. Among this, she had worked in a glass shop as well as teaching for a short period of time. Riley was influenced by artist Jackson Pollock, among the futurist paintings she had viewed while she was touring Italy. Since her first solo exhibition in 1962 at Studio One in London, her paintings have begun to increase in value. For instance, in 2008, one of her dot paintings sold for just over £2.5 million. Riley's paintings portray extreme amounts of geometric patterns. This suggests to the viewer that the paintings are in fact moving. However, this is just the eye playing tricks. Many people have actually reported suffering from motion sickness or experiencing a falling sensation after viewing these paintings for too long. Although Riley is known for black and white paintings, she is also one to use colour. Her interests include the colour and contrast within her work. Her most well-known pieces include Movement in Squares, Cataract 3, and Diagonal Curve. What is intriguing is her piece Red Movement contains several colours apart from red. A quote from Bridget Riley herself states, "I couldn't get near what I wanted through seeing, recognising and recreating, so I stood the problem on its head. I started studying squares, rectangles, triangles, and the sensations they give rise to. It is untrue that my work depends on any literary impulse or has any illustrative intention. The marks on the canvas are sole and essential agents in a series of relationships which form the structure of the painting." Bridget Riley is still present to this day and currently works and lives in London, Cornwall and France. Op art is a perceptual experience related to how vision functions. It is a dynamic visual art that stems from the discordant figure-ground relationship that puts the two planes, foreground and background, in a tense and contradictory juxtaposition. Artists create op art in two primary ways. The first, best-known way, is to create effects through pattern and line. Often these paintings are black and white. The antecedents of op art in terms of graphic and colour effects can be traced back to Neo-Impressionism, Cubism, Futurism, Constructivism, and Dada. Beginning in 1965, Bridget Riley began to produce a colour-based op art. Often, colourists' work is dominated by the same concerns of figure-ground movement, but they have the added element of contrasting colours that produce different effects on the eye. feel that op art and pop art as a movement and a huge impact on society will be remembered and used within art practices for many years to come. These styles of designs never cease to die out and therefore will be remembered along with the incredible artists that flow beside them.